So one characteristic that I've noticed with regards to the type of content I upload is how information heavy it can be, talking mainly about furry fandom characteristics being applied to societal norms and other complicated subjects. But I think what we could go for is a little bit of a break and try a different type of video, which is entirely informational. Don't you just love the type of content I make? In all seriousness, this channel could use the occasional stereotypical type of video thrown into the oversaturated cesspool that is YouTube. Or in this case, a video that doesn't require people to think too heavily on the subject at hand. Today we'll be having a little story time in which I'll be discussing how I found and joined the furry fandom. Now to clarify, there was a major gap in between me finding the furry fandom and joining, which is why I added both into the title. It's not just for the sake of clickbait, guys. Also, you voted for this. Actually, no, you didn't, but we're saying you did. I know a large majority of you guys don't know how I found the furry fandom and really want to know what got me hooked. And yes, Zorora, it was the porn. The Maverick was too irresistible. So sit back, relax, get into a comfy life jacket, and grab a cold beverage. Because we're gonna talk about how the internet personality BetaEtaDelota, who is not a Poppyfur, discovered and joined the cult that is the furry fandom. No offense. Well, to know this, we'll have to go back about 2 years ago to the beginning of my freshman year in college. This was around the time where I was just getting acquainted with doing commentaries on YouTube and moving away from the whole gameplay commentary scene where people talked over Call of Duty gameplay, and yes, that was very much a thing. I ended up unfortunately joining a community that looked down on furries in a negative and disgusted manner. Oh, what a time to be alive that was. The idea behind this is that I originally had the mentality where it was mainstream to hate furries, even though I knew little to nothing about the fandom and technically had a Fursona. I was more in the mental state of accepting these social norms in that community in order to gain acceptance. But because I knew a bunch of artists throughout the summer of my high school graduation, I managed to learn about a very interesting individual by the name of SJRU. For those of you that don't know, SJRU is one of the sweetest Dragonites you could ever meet. Now, even if he might not be directly tied to the furry fandom, he was my first step into understanding who they were and how they function. I ended up talking to him after my first quarter of my freshman year, and we kind of just bonded after that. We talked every so often about art and our interests. He told me a bit about himself and how he got to this point, and overall, he was just a really nice derg to be around. He didn't show any implications of being a full-on furry, so I saw me interacting with him as being okay and non-suspicious. Because he did art at the time and still does, it is pretty cute. I discovered the person that made me rethink how I looked at the entirety of the furry fandom. Around the second semester of my freshman year, I was introduced to an individual by the name of Avanto, or as most of you know him as, Avantofulf. God damn is he adorable. Avantofulf was an artist at the time of me learning about him, doing commissions similar to what SJRU did every so often. But one day, he made a full-on move to the furry fandom, posting Fursuit Friday pics and cute videos of him snuggling stuff in fursuit. Now, I'm not sure if he got his fursuit around that exact time, but looking back on it, I did secretly think those videos of him were pretty goddamn cute, and I had that minor curiosity to join the fandom. Now, keep in mind, at this point, I'm still in a community that has a deep hatred for furries. This kinda came to a head after the Spotlight feature was added to YouTube and a furry by the name of Rainy Chaos was showcased compared to the other quote-unquote talent on YouTube. The people in that community were livid about this and started lashing out, making videos on it, basically what any 12-year-old on the internet does when they're angry. Even though all of this was happening, I was in a sort of paradox, if you want to call it that. I had been introduced to Avanto and SJRU who were furries, and I knew they weren't bad people, so I was confused as to how to feel about the furry fandom and who to really trust. It was at this point that me looking into the furry fandom, seeing all the Fursuit Friday and cute fursuit pictures, was more of a guilty pleasure than anything, where I didn't talk about it with anyone and the only one that knew about it was me. But I kept it all a secret out of fear of rejection or being targeted by the community I was in. That all changed for me when I met a third individual on Twitter who goes by 0 kilobits per second, or Jake. I originally met him because he was into Overwatch and played it competitively, so we ended up chatting often about that. He was overall a friendly guy that I got to know a little bit over a similar interest in a video game. I didn't think anything more about him until he posted that he was going to a furry convention in the early spring of my freshman year and tweeted all about it. From that point onward, I saw all sorts of furry convention pictures, merchandise, and cuddles being posted on my timeline. He even ended up trying on one of his friend's fursuits, which I thought was really adorable. When I asked him all about the furry stuff after the convention, he explained to me how he originally kept his furry side on the down low. He told me that going there actually made him become so much more of a furry. He said, and I quote, "I went from ew cons are gross to having fursuit paws squished in my face while the fursuiter shaked his head with disapproval. I can relate to that exact thing happening to me on so many different levels." After he explained to me what everything was like, I ended up researching the overall experiences of furry conventions, what furries really were and their interests, what it was like to wear a fursuit, along with who some furry YouTubers were at the time, like Majira, Quartz Husky, and Nose Hyena. After learning about and pretty much befriending these individuals, it then dawned on me that these people really aren't that bad after all. I learned that any normal person I know who is friendly and caring, can be a furry, do their own thing, and that's okay. There was no reason to be furious or hateful towards people in such a harmless hobby who keep to themselves and are genuinely happy. And most of all, I had no reason to be fearful of what people on the internet thought about me transitioning to and joining the furry fandom. At the end of the day, I wanted to make myself happy without causing harm, so I started to take slow steps towards my transition. Now let's rewind back to about a month or two when I released the 7 levels of being a furry. From there, I hadn't expected the video to do so well, let alone the furry fandom to find me and explain everything that there is to know. Sometimes the best way to have someone join is to shower them with love. Well, that and the information that no one ever needs to know. I know a lot of things about you guys that I wish I hadn't. No offense. At first I didn't fully accept that I was a furry or furtuber till about a couple of months later. But between those points where I was learning more and more about the fandom, meeting furries IRL including classmates who go to my college and previous high school, shout out to Manchas. And the most important thing of all, experiencing my first convention, getting fursuit hugs, meeting my furry YouTuber idols, that won me over entirely. My FurryCon video explains all of that, by the way. All I can say now is that I'm happier off with some of the best friends and fans I could have ever asked for, and I couldn't imagine where I would be now if I hadn't made that final decision to move on and be me. But that is the story of how I found and joined the furry fandom. So even though they might not be watching this, I want to thank SJRU, Avanto, and 0KBPS for helping me understand what the furry fandom is about and practically changing my life for the better. You guys being you was the reason why I gave it a chance, so thank you. It's been an incredible time meeting and befriending so many people over this past year, and I can't thank them enough for helping me find a fandom where I actually feel at home in. And that's really it for what I wanted to talk about, guys. Thank you all for sticking through this video. Apologies again if this was kinda all over the place with explanations. I really don't see myself as the best storyteller for videos, so please let me know what you thought of this in the comments below. As is, I see this as an experience to learn from, so in the end, this will help me in my future endeavors. Thank you guys again for being such a supportive fan base, for being part of the Life Jacket squad, and for just being you. We're really close to 30k subs, and even though I think it would be amazing if we hit it before Anthrocon, it still amazes me that at some point I'm going to break that next milestone. So even though I've said this 5 times over now, just thank you for everything. Stay Life Jacket, and I'll see you later, guys. Take care. Did I really just tell them to stay Life Jacket? Oh my god. Stay Life Jacket. Where's the stop button to this stupid program?